To hear this and many more audiobooks not available on YouTube in a podcast feed, please visit the first link in the description below, and thank you for your support. America Against America by Wang Huning, Chapter 7, Political Pyramid, Section 1, Capitol Hill. Congress has always been seen as the center of political power in the United States, and Congress has in principle the highest authority. I do not want to analyze in political science terms the organization, structure, function, and competence of Congress. The data can be found in any textbook. I want to talk about something concrete and vivid. One day in September 1988 around noon, we drove up to the front of the Capitol. It was a magnificent white building. As soon as we got out of the car, we saw a number of concrete, triangular stakes placed on the road leading to the front of the building, arranged in a twisted way so that vehicles could not go straight in. This is said to be a precaution against terrorists from the Middle East. Some terrorists have threatened to bomb the Capitol, so the police have to be careful. At the entrance of the Capitol, there are many heavily armed police officers standing. Entering the doors of the building, you encounter some more security police, and the inspection process is the same as the security check at the airport. The Capitol is a freely accessible place, and every visitor can enter. When not in session, visitors can also sit in their seats to get a taste of what it's like to be a congressman. Once inside, I found Sinclair, a leading expert on congressional issues. She was a professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of California, Berkeley, and is now, temporarily, doing research in Congress, as if she were also working as an assistant to the Speaker of the House. Professor Sinclair gave a brief introduction to the organization of Congress, and then gave a tour of the Capitol. The tour began with a look at the so-called corridor where the lobbyists, as they are called, lobby to pass a bill and influence the legislative process. See Chapter 5. They were responsible for lobbying to pass a bill and influence the legislative process. See Chapter 5, Section 4, Lay Advocates. The many chairs in the hallway provide better conditions for lobbyists, which is perhaps the most incomprehensible part of American political culture. Politics is a very serious matter of public interest, and the lobbyists are always lobbying for a special interest, which is a bit out of sight. But in the United States, this kind of activity is open and legal, and the government has set up a comfortable venue in the Capitol to provide services. Here is a certain spirit of enterprise, or business spirit. It's legitimate for businesses to do business with their own interests, and to be able to bargain openly. The head of the American Political Science Association's Congressional Research Program, who took us there, joked that China should send more people here. Entering the House meeting room, the venue is traditional. From the decor to the design, it's not up to modern aesthetic standards. Perhaps it is intentional to maintain this antique style. The light coffee-colored chairs look rough. The modern equipment is reflected in the technology. Voting by Congress is electronic. Each politician has a card that has a short tape with their code on it. To vote, the politician first inserts this card into a device located behind each row of seats and then presses a key. The member's choice is immediately displayed on a huge electronic display board hanging in front. Anyone can see it. There is usually live television coverage during legislative debates. There is a special TV channel to cover political events, such as the activities of the presidential candidates, the debates in the Senate, the votes in the House of Representatives, etc. So voters can also know what the people they elected are doing. This is a good way to monitor the situation. There are several microphones on the floor, and the legislator who wants to speak walks to the front to do so. There are often many people who are not on the floor when a legislator speaks. This is especially true when the Senate is in session. Senators who are not interested in the discussion of an issue leave the floor. They drink coffee and talk outside or go back to their offices. They watch the floor argument unfold on television and then rush off to cast a vote when it's time to vote. If a senator is a guest in his office at this time, he is likely to talk halfway and suddenly say, "Sorry, have to go vote," and pull up his legs and run. This can be said to be a strange phenomenon in American politics. It is a supreme legislative body, but it doesn't require everyone to sit upright. People are practical about this. What matters is that it can legislate, not how it legislates. The same is true for each member. What matters is whether I have a real vote, not whether I sit there or not. Not to be present without fear of what happens. If not, no one would dare to go far or fly high. After the tour of the building, we went to meet with a congressman named P. from North Carolina. Congressmen have their own offices. The Senate has its own building, and so does the House of Representatives. When you enter a congressman's office building, it is a little bit like getting on a plane and being closely inspected. Each congressman has a large office with the state emblem of the state from which the congressman comes hanging on the door. In a large building, generally partitioned into 2 rooms, the inner room is the congressman's office. Outside the door there is a secretary, in addition to several assistants. The room was filled with various documents. We walked up to P's door and informed the female secretary. The female secretary called in and said to wait for a moment. The female secretary enthusiastically took out a bag of peanuts for us to eat. Once asked, it turned out that the congressman's hometown produces peanuts in abundance and is here to advertise. Shortly after, P came out, exchanged pleasantries, and then went into the inner room and sat down. There was some discussion. He was found to be easygoing, good at conversation, and able to follow the visitors' topics. I am afraid this is a quality that a legislator must have. Elections are all sharp knives and are never polite. For those who want to be elected, it is very important to win the voters and how to make them believe you. Each congressman and senator has many aides in order to do this communication well, 10 for the congressman and about 20 to 30 for the senator. They have offices, not only in Washington, but also in their home states or in their districts. Congressmen are elected by district, so they have offices in their districts and representatives at the county level in order to fully communicate with their constituents. The congressmen also regularly print pamphlets and send them to their constituents to report on what they have done. On such pamphlets, I saw what was called David P's Washington Report. It said he started promoting a piece of legislation to ease the burden on homeowners. His spending and lending bill was endorsed by the House. 2 local universities received federal funding for medical and space research. Agricultural issues received attention, and congressional service projects helped citizens of the 4th District. Americans are not afraid to brag about themselves. I've heard for a long time that the legislators get a staggering amount of mail. This part is free, so legislators can send it in bulk to stay in contact. When I visited, I saw an employee driving an electric cart and delivering mail door to door. At the door of one legislator, there were 19 boxes of paper boxes stacked up, and when I walked over, a note on the boxes read envelope. There were probably a few thousand of them. They do not participate in such a mass correspondence voluntarily, nothing of the sort, but mechanically. To get reelected, they have to do it. They have to represent their constituents. In fact, not only do they have to write letters and send out circulars, they also have to meet with their constituents on various occasions to pull the strings and make important connections. Another point worth mentioning is the relationship between scholars and Congress. Members of Congress generally have assistants or advisors to enable them to express their opinions on specialized issues. The aides are usually young students, such as those in the political science and law departments of universities. This facilitates these students' understanding of the political process. It is amazing to think that when a senator came to visit Fudan University, a carload of wiry young arrived to see him. In fact, this is a noteworthy phenomenon in political life. This practice fills politics with youthful vigor and at the same time cultivates young people, an important process of political socialization. Many political scientists have worked as senior advisors, and many will tell you which president or presidential candidate he has advised on a particular issue. Political scientists also have easier access to the political system for observation and research. I asked Professor Sinclair, on the way to the congressman's office building, if this was common. She said it was common, and that the Political Science Association had a special program to advance this kind of research. This engagement between academia and politics reflects a spirit of pragmatism. Politicians are also happy to seek out academics as advisors, such as Kissinger, Brzezinski, and so on. In effect, on the one hand, this can make policy issues more scientific, and on the other hand, it reinforces the public's psychological perception of a policy because of the experts involved. The spirit of American politics is the same as its entrepreneurial spirit, taking the best goods on the market. Politics is specialized on many levels, and what remains is the politics of resolving contradictions, of solving problems. Whoever can solve contradictions and difficulties is popular. Of course, there are choices in popularity. There are various ways to cook the same meat, but not every way to cook it is welcome. Section 2. Society of 50. The United States is a country with a federal system of government with 50 states having relatively independent powers. The states existed before the federal government, and this history has determined the status of states' rights. In fact, one of the basic ideas of the Americans who established the country was to maintain the states' rights and limit the power of the federal government. Those who wrote the Constitution were all representatives from the states, and their leanings were clear. Thomas Dye said the structure of federalism is 1. The powers of the national government are granted by the Constitution. 2. The states are guaranteed by the Constitution. 3. The Constitution determines the powers of the national and state governments. 4. The constitutional provisions provide for the states to form the federal government. And 5. The courts interpret the constitutional provisions. State governments are not nominally local governments. They have greater independence, and each state has its own constitution and laws. The English word for state, guo, is state, which is a better translation of the original meaning, but state is just an agreed-upon translation because there can be no state in a country. In all respects, the political landscape is very much like a society of 50. Although the power of the federal government has expanded rapidly over the past 40 years since the war, the status of the states has not changed easily. Therefore, state politics is extremely important in politics. In many matters, the federal government has no power to interfere and cannot do anything. The leaders of state politics dominate state affairs. The relative independence of state capitals may be one of the conditions for rapid socioeconomic and cultural development. The federal system divides the United States into 50 states within a state, and the full name is the United States, which is actually translated as United Nations. 联合国. The government of a society can only manage a certain range. Beyond a certain range, it will be out of reach, which will cause a lack of administrative blood supply. This is not a political system problem, but a political physiology problem. A person's physical strength has a limit beyond which even the fittest person cannot bear. Government is no different, and history and reality have given us many examples of this. For large countries, finding the right kind of institution is more beneficial than anything else. Federalism has unwittingly served precisely that function. In the United States, the federal government is pretty much self-contained, managing the affairs of its own domain. The United States federal government is not small, but neither are the state governments, which makes all levels of government activity within reach. Of course, not every country has the conditions for federalism. State governments vary. One system is called the weak governor system. In this system, there are a number of independent executive officers, and the state constitution defines the system of state government in detail. The governor has no power to appoint or remove members of their cabinet. The executive power of the governor is weak. Administrative officials, civil officials, are not under the governor's jurisdiction. At present, many states still have this system. The other is the opposite, the strong governor system. This system emerged from the reform of corporate principles in government administration. The strong governor has authority over statewide administration, reduces the administrative responsibilities of boards and agencies, and establishes a cabinet of governors who prepare and oversee the budget. Dye believed that the governor was the central figure in state politics, and it was also believed that the governor was responsible for the affairs of the state's development. The governor's power in the state is equivalent to the president's power in the country. The governor is the chief executive, the chief legislator, the leader of the party, etc. The governor is responsible for coordinating state agencies, preparing the budget, and overseeing the state government's major programs. The office of governor is generally considered a stepping stone to the presidency or vice presidency. As Reagan was governor of California and Dukakis, the Democratic candidate for president in 1988, was governor of Massachusetts. As a result, the governor's office has become a must for politicians, and both parties often engage in fierce battles in state elections. The executive branch of a state is broadly divided into departments of finance, public welfare, highways, taxation, agriculture, industry, conservation, insurance, banking, education, budget, and disability services. Under the weak governorship system, these agencies have relatively independent status, and officials, such as the treasurer, attorney general, secretary of state, and auditor, are elected directly by the voters. They are directly accountable to them and are not subject to too much control by the governor. This system ensures that the officials of each specialized department have independent authority and are better adapted to the needs of society, while they are also directly supervised by the voters. In a strong governor system, such officials do not exist or are subordinate to the governor. In today's political life, it is conceivable that governors can use various methods to influence institutions and expand their powers, whether they are strong or weak governors. Next to the executive branch is the legislature. The main responsibility of the state legislature is to make laws. Each state also has a House of Representatives and a Senate. The number of members of the Senate varies from 19 to 67, and the number of members of the House of Representatives varies from 39 to 400. The organization and legislative process of the state legislatures are generally the same as those of the federal legislature, and are clearly defined by law. The importance of state politics is also shown in other political operations. One is that interest groups and lobbyists are active at the state political level. A clearer sign is that political party activity at the state level is the focus of party campaign activity. The party members ascend from the lowest level, the precinct, to the state level, which is a key level. There are state party committees at the state level, as well as state executive committees. A major feature of American political party organization is that it is decentralized. The national party apparatus has virtually no major powers, and state party organizations often decide their own affairs. Within some states, county and municipal party organizations also have their own independence. The cantonal party committees are responsible for organizing the election of the governor, federal senators, and deputies. County and city committees are responsible for organizing the election of county and city officials and members of the state legislature. The National Committee actually only plays a role every 4 years, holding a national convention to determine the party's presidential candidate. The state parties are organized separately, which is why some say both parties are coalitions of 50 or more parties, and the National Committee is merely a meeting of the state party organizations, not a governing body, and does not control the state party organizations. Each state has detailed laws regulating the activities of political parties and the organization of political parties. Nominations, primaries, party officers, numbers, duties, and meetings are all determined by state law, not by the parties themselves. The reason why the states have elaborate laws regulating the activities of political parties has to do with the possible negative phenomena associated with the activities of political parties and the absence of a national force that can regulate the current state of party organization in the states, and the fact that the party's activities is primarily based in state-level structures. State governments are also important because they can influence county and municipal governments to a large extent through grants. Conversely, the federal government can also influence state governments through grant money. However, there are limits to this influence. The state government's budgetary body does not have much to do with the federal government. There are two main types of funding assistance between the federal government and the state governments: grants and revenue sharing. The state government can levy taxes, such as income tax, sales tax, gasoline tax, tobacco and alcohol tax, and various fees or revenues from public enterprises. The tax system is extremely complex and confusing to the average American. See Chapter 4, Section 5, the tax system. The federal system gives the states considerable leeway to operate. This is not uncommon in today's political system. The states have so much power and independence that there is even concern that it could cause dysfunction, but, on the whole, the system works well. There are multiple layers of socio-historical, cultural reasons for this. Economically speaking, the United States is a highly unified market, a complete whole. Hamburgers, IBM companies, car gas stations, KFC, Greyhound Coach, etc. are national organizations, but also non-governmental organizations. Car rental companies are a good example. Customers in San Francisco to rent a car after driving to New York can be returned to the company's branches. The country has such a service. Hilton and other large systems of hotels are all over the country. The unification of information and transportation together gives the integration of this society of states a durable substructure. The high level of economic development performs the important function of maintaining national unity. Under such circumstances, the political system in turn does not need to make much effort, and a situation like the Civil War could hardly be reproduced. Secondly, American political history tells us that the state governments precede the federal government, and the states already have a more orthogonal functioning mechanism. The federal government is established only to maintain the original status of the states so that they will not be destroyed and weakened. On the contrary, if there is a central government first and a local government later, the situation is very different. In the political development of different countries, there are local governments as the premise of the central government, and there are central governments as the premise of local governments. It goes without saying, I am afraid, that these two models lead to different results. The long-running U.S. social system has created a culture that accepts the current political landscape, the Society of 50, and is the main force that maintains it. To maintain an institution is, in effect, to maintain itself. The federal government is, in a sense, an institution that is coordinated and managed by people from the G50. Section 3. County Politics. A county is a local government. A state government is not a local government. The county is pivotal in that it deals directly with the people. The state government is separated by the county, and the federal government is separated by the state. There are approximately 3,000 counties in the United States, including some states that for historical reasons do not call their subdivisions counties, but use other titles, such as parishes in Louisiana and boroughs in Alaska. The county administrative function is important. This shows the importance of the political management of counties. Every county has a county government. However, the structure and functions of government vary considerably from county to county and are not uniform. This situation is not rare in the political systems of countries. Most countries have a similar structure at the same level of the government. The differences are greater in federal systems. Not all counties have a government. About 31 counties do not have a county government and are governed through other administrative units. A few counties are governed by a combination of county and city governments, and some counties are governed directly by metropolitan areas. The number of counties also varies from state to state, with Delaware having only 3 counties and Texas having 254 counties. The size of counties also varies greatly, with San Bernardino County in California having more than 20,000 square miles, almost the size of 2 Netherlands, the combined size of Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Delaware. In contrast, Arlington County, Virginia, is only 24 square miles. From an economic perspective, counties are generally dominated by agriculture. The cities within the county are the main markets. Some counties are based on industrial economies. Economic activity and organization varies greatly from county to county and is unique. County politics is noteworthy. County politics is the foundation of politics. Counties are the basis of political party organization. County politics is one of the most substantive elements of politics. Herbert Sidney Duncombe author of County Government in America, says that county political party chairmen are often the key players in local political organization. County elections and county offices are stepping stones to state and federal government, and counties are also where money is collected, with gerrymandering often done on a county-by-county basis. Political organizations are organized at the county level. County officials are often responsible for determining sub-county districts, designating precinct leaders, etc. The basic unit below the county level is the precinct, sub-district. Precincts may have only a dozen voters in rural areas and 2,000 voters in cities. Political parties are organized in precincts. It varies from precinct to precinct. Some precincts have elected precinct leaders, committeemen. Others are led by committees. This is not a government organization, but a civil organization. At election time, the task of the committeeman is to organize his party's activists, contact potential voters, distribute campaign literature, and attend meetings. It is at this level that the two parties' campaign for voters is mainly carried out. In more populous counties, there are also intermediate political organizations between subdivisions and counties. County political organizations are generally led by a committee or chairman of the organization. These political organizations have no direct power over the government, but only the possibility to indirectly influence government decisions. Political organizations must solve all problems of funding their activities, venues, personnel, etc. by themselves and cannot take a single cent of taxpayers' money. Counties have a wide variety of governmental organizations, a feature of American politics, including the traditional model, the quasi-manager model, the elected model, the administrative assistant model, and the county administrator model, which Duncombe divides into two broad categories. In the traditional multi-person executive model, 85 to 90% of the county governments have some sort of traditional elected multi-person governing board, generally called the Board of Commissioners, sometimes referred to as County Court, Board of Supervisors, or other names. Some county administrators have other functions, and some county administrators also serve as town supervisors, judges, or other positions. The county governing body is primarily an administrative body, which can appoint certain employees and approve financial documents. They generally have the authority to adopt the county budget and to pass regulations as allowed by state law. A number of other county officials, such as the treasurer, are also elected. This is a major feature of this system. The executive and administrative system has one person with greater supervisory authority who has some say in the county administration. Within this form, there are variations, such as the county manager system, in which the county board is merely the decision-making body, while a manager is employed for most administrative functions. The manager is a professional chosen solely on the basis of experience and learning, without regard to factional leanings. The manager does not care about decision-making, and the decision-maker does not care about day-to-day administration. The manager has the authority to appoint most of the administrative officers and to prepare the county budget and implement it. The quasi-manager system, the administrative officer system, and the administrative assistant system are all variations of the above system, and all have a professional person appointed by the county commission to be in charge of administration, but the appointee does not have full power to appoint officials and administrative authority. Another system is the elected administrative officer system, in which the chief administrative officer is elected and the voters of the county participate in the election. The county commission has little executive power and is the equivalent of a county deliberative body. County governmental bodies vary and are related to the early history of the American colonies. The usual affairs of county government include valuing property for use in collecting local taxes, which are drawn on the value of the property, collecting property taxes, recording property documents, maintaining rural roads, providing relief to the poor, enforcing laws, administering elections, and certain judicial functions. These functions are defined by state law. In addition to this, the county government performs some functions determined by the county itself to meet the needs of the county's residents, such as fire protection, water supply, parking, airports, public schools, libraries, health, welfare, policing, transportation, etc. Another power of the county is its right to levy property taxes, which the county collects and then distributes to cities, school districts, or other local units. Counties have two main sources of revenue: property taxes and state aid and other funds. Tax collection varies from county to county, with some counties relying primarily on property taxes, others relying primarily on state tax redistribution, and some counties levying additional taxes. The county is pivotal in political life, and its activities and functions are closest to the voters. A large part of the political system is reflected in county politics. The counties are all economically developed to a considerable level. The standard of living and amenities do not differ much from those of metropolitan areas. Most of the young people have access to higher education, and credit and transportation are very well developed. There is also no apparent backwardness or ignorance in the counties of the average agricultural region. This is an important condition for county politics to work. To a large extent, county politics is the foundation of American politics. The process of county politics determines what kind of politics people can and cannot accept. At the county level, it has more of a managerial dimension. Class interests are more directly reflected in the federal and state governments. The county level of government takes more into account the actual interests of the residents and reflects class interests more indirectly, and is actually made possible by the electoral system. The county is small enough that everyone can see what the county officials are doing. If they feel dissatisfied, they will not vote for them next time. Anyone who wants to get more votes has to do real work. This is the basis for the secularization of politics. The managerial system and various other institutions prevailing in county politics reflect the degree of secularization of county politics. Many people see county politics as a technical issue rather than a political one. Of course, there is some politicking in county politics, but it is just more necessary to use practical matters at the base of the system. In fact, the American political system is programmed to function more effectively in its more than 3,000 counties. For any society to have any form of mature political system, the first step should be for local and grassroots government to function effectively. Local governments are in direct contact with their constituents and the people, not as far apart as the federal and state governments. The people evaluate the merits and failures of politics by looking at what is closest to their interests. Therein lies the political value of the success or failure of local political operations. After more than 200 years of society's operation, and with the compulsion of the electoral system, county politics have worked quite well. To say that they have worked well is to say that they have laid a good foundation for the stability of political rule as a whole. In reality, Americans value county politics, or the next level of politics, which is only one level removed. For federal politics, they often will find it boring because it is too far away. The American nation is a nation that speaks of pragmatism, political pragmatism, that is, focusing on the politics of the immediate future. This attitude in turn has promoted the development of local politics, including county politics. Section 4. Politics in the City. The city is a fundamental unit in the social and political governance of the United States. The success of the United States is, to a large extent, the success of cities. According to 1970 statistics, there were 56 large cities with a population of more than 250,000, and the total population was more than 40 million. There are also more than 200 central cities. In addition, there are many smaller cities like Iowa City, which are scattered all over the country. The United States is a highly urbanized society, with more than 95% of the population not engaged in agricultural production. As a result, most of the population is concentrated in the cities, so whether or not the municipalities are well managed becomes a very critical issue. 80% of China's population is in the countryside, and whether or not the countryside is well managed is the key to the successful development of Chinese society. Any social and political management is the management of the people. Therefore, in order for a society to develop, for the economy to prosper, for the culture to flourish, it should first find the appropriate way to manage the largest part of a society population, including cultural, geographical, economic, religious, and political means. Only when the largest part of the population is properly managed can a society develop in a balanced way. What does the city government care about? Probably most city governments around the world have to manage the same things because people have the same ultimate needs. On top of this whole basis, countries manage some different matters depending on their culture. Dimitrios Karale author of Municipal Government and Municipal Issues, divides the functions of municipalities into 3 categories: welfare, including matters such as fire prevention, water supply, maintenance of streets and highways, and public health. Control. The municipality is responsible for the control of food, sanitation, corporate tax evasion, housing, maintenance, city construction, daily services, transportation, air pollution, water pollution, racial discrimination, urban development, etc. Taxes are drawn to support the first 2 functions. One of the categories in which the city levies taxes is property taxes, and the other is sales taxes. Municipalities additionally have some revenue. When you buy something in the United States, local taxes are often added. In short, whoever buys something pays a tax. Some municipalities also levy nuisance taxes, or as they are commonly known in this country, benefits fees, on related departments. The municipality may also levy nuisance taxes on the amenities and services it provides, such as zoos, recreational facilities, museums, bridges, tunnels, bus and subway fares, public housing rentals, and hospital services. The municipality may also collect fees for the issuance of various licenses. Finally, there are fines. City government has a huge budget. Government officials at all levels think about problems in a very simple way: money. The basic means by which governments solve any problem is making budgets. In China, just making a budget obviously doesn't work. One must also coordinate interpersonal relationships and unblock material channels. The highly developed American economy allows Americans to think that way and to actualize that way of thinking. The organization of municipal governments is not provided for in the Constitution. Theoretically, municipal governments are created by the state government to perform functions assigned by the state. The authority of municipal government is generally set forth in the city charter, which is like an ordinance and varies from city to city. The state government influences municipal government in a variety of ways. First, by the powers granted by the state constitution. Second, by legislative delegation. Third, by state funding, which accounts for about 1/3 of municipal government expenditures. Fourth, by administrative oversight. And fifth, by special investigations. Municipal governments are organized differently from each other as determined by the Constitution and laws of each location. Therefore, there are rarely 2 municipalities with identical governmental organizations. Generally, municipalities have some form of mayor and city council. The mayor is elected separately and is the chief executive officer of the city, overseeing and enforcing the laws. The mayor is the head of the city and represents the city in various activities. There is also a city council, which can make local laws, establish plans, and levy taxes, etc. The president of the city council is generally elected by the city council, and in some cities, such as Chicago and Atlanta, is elected directly by the voters. Some cities, like New York, have 2 legislative bodies to keep each other in check. The mayor's authority also varies, with a strong mayor and a weak mayor. A strong mayor has greater authority, while a weak mayor has less authority and is limited by the city council, mainly in the areas of appointing administrative officials, making plans, and legislating. The other form is called the city council manager form, which is practiced mainly in cities of less than 1 million people and in half of the cities of less than 500,000 people. In this system, the city council appoints a city manager as the main executive officer, and there is no separate election of an executive mayor. The manager serves the city council and can resign if he or she does not want to do it. The manager appoints the heads of the administrative departments. In general, the city council cannot directly interfere with the administrative departments, but must first deal with the manager. The city manager prepares the budget and the city council adopts it. Under the manager-council system, there is also a mayor, who is elected by the voters or chosen by the city council. He is only a representative of the city, not a major executive officer, and his duties are honorary, including attending ceremonies and signing laws. The third form is the committee system, which exists in a few cities with a population of less than 500,000. In this system, all powers are vested in a committee which has between 5 and 7 members. The councils together form the city council and exercise legislative power. The individual members are the heads of one of the administrative departments. In some cities, separate elections are held, and then the committees are formed. In some cities, the committees are elected first and then divided. In this form, there is no mayor. Only one commissioner, who enjoys the title of mayor, presides over the meetings and attends the ceremonies as the representative of the city, but has no privileges and sits on an equal footing with the other commissioners. He is sometimes elected directly by the voters and sometimes chosen by the commission. In some cities, the commissioner who receives the most votes is also the mayor. The electoral system also varies greatly from city to city. For example, the term of office varies from 2 to 4 years. Some municipalities divide their electoral districts, while others do not. Some municipalities require candidates to indicate their party affiliation for elections, while others do not. And in municipalities where party affiliation is required, candidates for each party are generally selected by each party's primary election. Anyone wishing to run for office must obtain a certain number of signatures from the voters of his or her party. Other forms of election also require that someone sign a certain number of signatures, and some cities require a certain deposit from those who want to run. Municipal governments have a variety of relationships with other types of local governments. Most large cities are within the territory of the counties, which have county governments. There are also local governments such as special districts, towns, and satellite cities. These governments do not have a direct relationship with the municipality, but their activities can influence the municipality. One of the major relationships is with the county government. The concept of counties and cities is different from that of China. Chinese counties generally refer only to rural areas and do not include large and medium-sized cities. In the United States, counties are both administrative and geographic concepts. Large and medium-sized cities are generally within the geographic boundaries of counties, not within the administrative boundaries. Counties have their own separate governments, most of which are located within large cities. Counties administer certain local courts, register marriages, oversee elections, and in some cases participate in welfare programs, and in some city counties administer hospitals and public health programs, etc. Some counties have separate governments and different systems, and some cities have some county officials, but as part of the city government function, such as New York, Philadelphia, Boston, and New Orleans, some places are called cities and counties, such as San Francisco, where there is only one governmental organization and the city is the primary focus. Most county organizations were formed long ago, while cities were formed gradually with economic development. During the long process of development, forces have waxed and waned from each other, with some cities and counties uniting and others separating. Cities within counties are a characteristic of American administrative divisions. Separation of cities and counties is a characteristic of Chinese administrative divisions. Cities within counties are beneficial in promoting the development of rural areas. Cities are also centers of politics. Political parties are very active in large cities. Party leaders are usually people who hold important government positions or have leadership positions in the party. Each city is divided by law into smaller constituencies called precincts, each of which has an average of 600 to 900 people, ranging from 200 to 2,000. There is a polling station within the precincts. The supporters of a party in each precinct elect a committeeman or several committeemen in a primary election. They are the grassroots cadres of the party and are party workers, not party leaders. Further up, there is the ward or assembly. In this electoral unit, there is usually one member of the municipal council or state legislature. Each ward assembly elects its own leaders, who are the grassroots party leaders in the city. The leaders are elected either directly by the members of their party in the primary election or by the ward assembly. Ward leaders generally have the right to appoint a ward captain. Usually, the ward captain office is combined with the ward committeeman. All ward leaders form the central or executive committee of the party city or county, which in turn appoints a county or city party chairman, who is the leader of the party's municipal chapter. In nature, as with other political organizations, there are many variations here. New York City consisted of 5 counties, each with its own party organization, but without a city commission or a city chairman. The city and county party cadres are nominally part of the state and national party organizations, but in practice have a great deal of independence, especially in the election of city officials. In the 19th century, party leaders had a pivotal influence on the political process, which has greatly changed today, and the role of primary elections has limited the power of party leaders. However, this is precisely the premise that has allowed the two-party system to endure. Both parties allow for differences of opinion without which organizational fragmentation is inevitable. Cities are strategic political locations, and while political parties are not what they used to be, party activity in cities is still the mainstay of party politics. municipalities govern more than 95% of the population, and how cities tend to develop determines the development of society in the future. Large and medium-sized cities are facing increasingly serious challenges with rising crime rates, rising cost of living index, aging city facilities, and high taxes. I have been to San Francisco, Washington, D.C., New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, Boston, Atlanta, Seattle, San Diego, and other large cities. New York has a frightening crime rate. Downtown Chicago has a lot of desolate places, and so on and so forth. Of course, in all fairness, compared to many countries in the world, American municipal management is first-rate and modern. The American municipality has a favorable condition in that it only needs to regulate the economy, not to manage it. The economic sphere is privately managed, and the municipality only makes regulations. The primary function of local government is to manage urban development, promote the improvement of urban living standards, and improve urban facilities. Compared to China, the responsibilities of municipalities are much smaller. The municipality is able to focus on development. The development of society has always pointed out new problems and constantly challenged human management capabilities. In the face of these challenges, people can have two choices. One is to limit the problem, the other is to find countermeasures. Limiting the problem cannot ultimately solve the problem. The problem can only be solved by finding countermeasures. Section 5. Grassroots Politics. In political science, the term grassroots politics can be translated as 基层政治 or 草根政治, if it is not translated in the original way. How politics unfolds below the county government is a part of the social management system. The county government acts as the next level of the state government, and from the county government to the people, some states have a lower level of government, which is the town or township government. Once again, however, this level of government reflects American culture in that not all states have town or township governments and exist only where there is a tradition of such governments, such as in the East, the Mid-Atlantic, and elsewhere. Township governments are more typical of New England. Thinkers, such as Thomas Jefferson, spoke highly of town government as an ideal form of direct democracy. Town government originated during the colonial period when, due to harsh winters and the presence of Indians, early colonists established such formations in small villages and on the land that surrounded it. A church was often located in the area, which included both rural areas and towns. The politics of the town government is relatively simple, with decisions made by a meeting of all eligible voters who choose the town officials. Meetings are held once a year and can be called if needed. After the town-wide meeting makes their decision, the elected town officials, 3 to 9, govern for a year. In addition, voters elect a number of other officials. Town officials are required to carry out the basic policies set by the town council. However, some scholars point out that as political life has evolved, fewer people come to meetings, and fewer people are willing to be town officials. Some towns develop delegate meetings where voters elected 100 or more people to meet and represent them. Rousseau said that the public will cannot be represented, and if people prefer to elect delegates to represent their will, the political system has deteriorated. What is the trend of town government? It is hard to say now. However, in many places, town governments still play a pivotal role. On town governments, see Chapter 2, Section 6, Political DNA, where a field trip to a town government is documented. In addition to townships, rural areas in the Mid-Atlantic and East Central states also have township governments. Township governments usually cover an area of 36 square miles. In many states, township governments are still quite active, such as Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Missouri and Washington still have a small number of township governments. Iowa and Oklahoma once had township governments, which are no longer functioning. The township government takes care of the roads, handles minor legal cases, and administers elections. The township government is also responsible for assessing property values and drawing taxes. In some states, large townships can have police, fire, water, and other agencies. The township government is responsible for meeting the needs of the rural population. The township government is run much like a town government, with the voters setting policy at their annual meeting. However, Few people come to the meetings unless the matter is of great importance. The township government is currently in decline because rural areas are becoming less and less populated, transportation is well developed, and information networks and economic communications are keeping rural areas more closely connected to the cities. These functions are difficult for the village government to undertake. On the other hand, fewer and fewer people are willing to be village officials. People go to higher places and seek higher positions outside the countryside. However, in some of the more urbanized places, the role of the village government has grown slightly. This is because they are urbanized, have high population densities, and have many conflicts and interests to sort out, making management naturally indispensable. Another form of government are the special districts. Not many people know about this form of government. A special district is a governmental organization that is separate from other governmental agencies and has its own taxation and other powers, as well as its own governmental organization. Special districts are organized for different needs, such as airports, developmental planning, parking lots, and so on. Special districts have boundaries with other governmental organizations, such as municipalities and counties, and may be intertwined with other governments. There are urban and rural areas, and 60% of special districts are concentrated in 10 states, such as California and Illinois. The reasons for establishing special districts are generally 1. To facilitate or support a particular function, and 2. The institution performing some single function is critical within a district. There are many types of special districts. 1. School special districts, the largest in number, headed by a committee that provides a system of education to the people under them. 2. Sanitation special districts, to make sewage treatment more efficient. 3. Electricity special districts. 4. Water special districts, where water is supplied by a water system. 5. Other categories. Library special districts, fire special districts, forest special districts, etc. Special zones grew the fastest in the 1950s and 60s. The total number of special zones is approximately equal to the total number of cities in the country. The creation of a special district is determined by state law. The people in a special district form a government for a specific purpose. A board is generally elected, which has the power to levy taxes, establish the necessary organizations, and purchase the necessary equipment to meet the needs of the people. Special districts are used to meet the special needs of the people and to levy taxes on people in special areas. Special districts are created because other local governments cannot provide such special services. Special districts tend to have a low political function and are only active to provide some special service. Naturally, there are arguments about the special zone. Some argue that its creation has benefited those manufacturers engaged in the production of specialized equipment, since special zones are established for specialized objectives. Moreover, although special zones are not established for political purposes, they are not free from politics. Interest groups and politicians continue to operate in special zones and influence their management. In any case, special districts are a more flexible form of administration where there is a special need. The creation of a special district to address it is a proven method of administration. When state and other local governments cannot meet the needs, a purely managerial special district organization for special needs is a reasonable option. It is especially appropriate for societies with large land areas, cultural differences, and complex needs. When it comes to the system and form of management a society uses, it is better to be alive than dead. If the system is too dead, it tends to restrict the lively and active development of society. Of course, things cannot be taken to extremes, and if they are too alive, social management activities will again lose their order and have no integrated structure. Finding the right orientation between the two extremes is a prerequisite for the optimization of a society's management. Finally, there are also village governments, villages. The concept of village is here equivalent to town rather than township, and has an urban rather than a rural connotation. Legally speaking, villages have the same status as municipalities. The status of a village is defined by state law. Some villages are just a few homes around a post office or store where the sound of chickens and dogs is heard. Some are larger. People here need services, such as road repair, street lighting, and water supply, and the constituent villages are too small to be called municipalities. Each state has a law that people can apply to form a village through certain procedures. Village governments are generally similar to a weak mayoral system. The legislative body is a small committee of 3 to 9 people. A chairman or other title presides over the committee. A few other officials are elected, few and far between. The village government may be separate from the county government, sending its own representatives to the county government, or it may be subordinate to the county government, which varies. American politics is very liberal at this level of grassroots politics, where the main function is to provide services and amenities to the people in the jurisdiction, and other functions are relatively less obvious. Officials rely on taxes paid by people for administration, and they are elected. The organization of grassroots politics is simple and easy to monitor. In political life, the people have nothing to say about national politics or state politics, but they have a real say in grassroots politics because these activities happen around them before their eyes and are intertwined with their daily lives. In fact, it's more social welfare at this level. Grassroots welfare, grassroots non-politics, is enough for the common people. Section 6. Transparent proceedings. One interesting aspect of the political process is that much of the decision-making process is public. The federal, Senate, and House of Representatives meet and debate in public, televised live, and open to the casual observer in a designated seat. The results of the votes of all legislators are also public, and electronic display boards automatically show each person's voting position at a glance. State governments meet and debate in the same manner as the federal legislature. I have observed the Maryland legislature on the floor, and there are gallery seats and electronic display boards. At the local government level, open hearings are also the norm. Open hearings are generally in deliberative bodies. At the county level of government, the setup varies, so I can't say it's the same across the United States. I attended a meeting of the Johnson County Board of County Commissioners in Iowa that was open to the public. The venue is located in the County Administration Building. The County Administration Building is a 4-story building the size of a movie theater. It is small compared to the size of the county government offices in China. The 2 largest offices in the county government are the Voter Registration Office and the Driver's License Application Office. The venue is about 50 to 60 square meters in size, with fixed tables in the front row and 5 fixed seats for the 5 elected commissioners. In front of each person was a sign with their name. To the right sat the prosecutor and the auditor. They participate in opinions when financial and legal issues are involved. To the left sits the clerk with a recording device. Opposite the podium, a small table and chairs are placed for those concerned to express their opinions. Behind this table there are more than 20 chairs where the public can sit and observe their decisions and listen to their discussions. The general public is not very interested in this either, but mainly those who are related to the decisions of the day's meeting are willing to attend the meeting. Those present to observe could watch and could speak and comment as long as they had prior permission from the chairman. The day's proceedings were extensive, starting at 9 o'clock. Journalists from local newspapers were also present. There were several items on the informal agenda for discussion. One was to redecorate the offices of one of the county agencies. There was a lot of discussion about carpeting, curtains, air conditioning, and how much the state would pay, and how much the county would pay. The spokesperson for this agency that made the request presented the case, and the county commissioners asked the questions very carefully and thoughtfully. Even the architect was brought in. In the end, it was decided that the architect would come up with a draft first, and then the county commissioners would meet to discuss it again. The second was to discuss the construction of a road, opening and connecting 2 roads, in order to provide more convenience to the area. Each project proponent had to present their case, answer questions, and present materials. They brought written materials as well as design drawings. When the meeting was held, they had to gather around to discuss the drawings and then make a decision. Informal agendas are for the preparation and discussion of issues and do not require a vote. This decision-making mechanism of the county is equivalent to the legislature, where the final decision is to be made by a vote and the vote is public. The official agenda began at 10 o'clock with the tapping of a small gavel from the chair. The first item was the consideration of the sale of property. There were 3 pieces, 2 of which passed quickly. The third was hotly debated. The gist of it was this: by law, everyone who owns property and real estate must pay property taxes, and if they don't, the government has the right to confiscate the property and to sell it. The money from the sale is offset against the property taxes. It's a very powerful law, and people can't afford to cheat their property taxes. The issue under consideration that day was within this scope. A man was building a house, and halfway through he probably ran out of money and couldn't build it, but he had to pay property taxes on the house and he couldn't pay them. The government confiscated his house and put it up for sale. An old friend of his was ready to buy the house for $2,000 and return it to him to solve the problem. Another young couple lived next to the unfinished house and thought it was too unsafe for children to play there and be in danger and wanted to buy the house and tear it down. They promised to pay $1,000. The argument took place among these people. The owner of the property spoke to explain his case. His friend defended his buddy's position. The young woman defended her own. Each also had one or two neighbors who spoke on his behalf. After a longer debate, the members voted. The auditor calls each member's name in turn, and those who agree say yes, and those who disagree say no. The result of the vote is recorded by the auditor. The result of the vote was that the young couple won. The county commissioners meeting preferred $1,000 to $2,000, probably because they felt that the property owner could not be allowed to own the property because he had not paid taxes for 11 years. If $2,000 was chosen, the result is that the property owner owns the house and does not pay the property taxes owed for 11 years. The second consideration was the plan of the Human Services Agency, which requested the expansion of office space and the establishment of a juvenile center. The head of the County Human Services Agency presented his reasons and submitted a draft and drawings. The vote passed. The third item, a letter to the State Department of Economic Development discussing the issue of securing greater benefits for the county, passed quickly, without much debate. Then a few matters of the county audit will be discussed, and a license to sell alcohol will be issued. In the U.S., you have to have a license to sell alcohol, and it is illegal to sell alcohol without a license. When I ate at a Korean restaurant, they had no beer because there was no license. There was no objection to the license that was issued. Then the motion made by the prosecutor for the 1988 school election, for which he had prepared papers, passed. One person's application was also discussed. He plans to convert 11 acres of farmland into a residential area to build a new house. Without objection, it passed. In the United States, landowners are not free to do as they please with their land, but are subject to government laws that require government approval of plans for the land, or they cannot break ground. Several agenda items were then quickly discussed, and all passed. The last item that was discussed at some length was the issue of snow plowing in the winter. With so many cars in the United States, snow plowing the roads in the winter is a big problem. Equipment has to be purchased, budgets have to be set, and the people have to be recruited. If a lot of money is spent and not much snow falls, the benefit of the money is not realized. If you save money, the result is too much snow to cope with, and voters will raise their disappointments. So the issue of snow removal becomes an important agenda item for the government in winter. After the agenda is completed, several county commissioners and the prosecutor and auditor share their opinions with each other. Each can ask any questions they have, for the record. Finally, the chairman asked the audience what they had to say. At this point, only 2 listeners remained, and the other 24 people left, one after another, after their own matters had been discussed. One person said he had an opinion. He asked the county commissioners if, in endorsing the Human Services Plan, i.e. building a new office building, they had considered renting or buying an existing building and why they had to build a new one, which would be much more expensive. This person was a person who had nothing to do with the project but was concerned about it. One of the county commissioners who had investigated the matter replied. The meeting ended with the chairman taking a wooden gavel and tapping it. This entire process, which is completely open, allows anyone to sit in and voice their opinion. The county commissioners are all elected. After the meeting, one of the county commissioners told me that at a county commissioners meeting, everything must be voted on in public. Without a public vote, they cannot make a decision. A large part of the functioning of politics is in local politics. The proper functioning of local politics is the basis for the functioning of the entire system. Each ordinary citizen's perception of the political system often comes first from the functioning of the political institutions closest to him. The deliberative process of county politics makes people feel that there is a high degree of transparency. Naturally, they have their own way of getting through matters they want to pass or do not want the audience to know about. Voting must be public, but they can speak very specialized language and vote very quickly. People call it railroading, which means drive through fast, and before people can react, it's passed. The main duty of the county council is actually to discuss how the budget is spent, and many matters involve money. There are not many purely political matters, nor do they directly manage economic matters. There is a tendency to depoliticize local politics, mostly in the areas of welfare, road repair, taxes, property, etc. Johnson County's entire 1987 revenue was $21 million, of which property taxes accounted for about one half, and intergovernmental transfer taxes for more than $2 million. The county council mainly decides how this money is to be spent. Of course, there are political party disputes at the county level, and the political parties are based in the counties. However, the activities of the counties themselves are very specific and generally involve the livelihood of the county. For local governments, there are two goals that should be implemented in any society. First, that local governments effectively meet the immediate needs of local residents, and second, that local governments are highly open in their proceedings. Local governments are the feet of the central government, without which the central government cannot move an inch. Local governments are the hands of the central government, without which the central government cannot accomplish anything. The central government should take the most effective measures and policies to promote local governments to achieve these two goals. With effective local governments, the central government will be like a tiger with wings, like a fish in water. Section 7. Selecting an official. The United States has a permanent civil service system in which all service officers are subject to a public examination. This system is said to have been developed from the ancient Chinese imperial examination system, which was first adopted by the British. However, the ancient Chinese eight-legged examination and imperial examinations are very different from the modern civil service system. The United States began to implement a civil service system around the end of the 19th century. Prior to that, the political party spoils system, or party fattening system, that is, after the election of a candidate of a political party to the presidency, his or her party will be able to rise to the top, and those with status celebrate. This system has a number of drawbacks, resulting in official corruption, cliques, and inefficiency. There is a story about a man who wanted to become a government official in Washington in that era, but did not get what he wanted and ended up shooting the then president. This incident is considered to be an important milestone in the implementation of the civilian system in the United States. The actual problem is not the shooter's dissatisfaction, but in whether a system can adapt to the needs of social development. The basic feature of the civil service system is the separation of political and business officials. The civil officials were not elected, while the political officials were elected and worked together with the political parties. The officials are selected by public examination and are competitive and politically neutral. In fact, many of them are not officials, but ordinary employees. Anyone who wants to work in the public sector has to pass either an election, a public appointment, or an examination so that qualified people can enter the public sector and the path of corruption is blocked. It also serves to balance the political forces of each faction. How exactly does this system work? I did research in Iowa City's city government. Iowa City is a city with a managerial system. The highest authority in the city is the city council, which has 7 members, one of whom is the mayor, a virtually honorary position. The mayor, John McDonald, runs the optician's store across the street from the school and often sits inside to fix glasses for customers. He would only go to City Hall when the city council was in session. The person responsible for day-to-day affairs is the city manager. Under the city manager are the finance department, housing department, public facilities management department, fire department, cooperative department, planning department, public works department, transportation department, personnel department, and police department. In addition, the city manager is not responsible for the library director, the city clerk, or the city's chief justice. The city manager employs nearly 500 permanent employees, including fire department, police, and library employees. Anyone who works in the public sector is included. In addition, the city needs temporary staff, about 300 to 400 people per year, such as snow plowing in winter, road repair, and lawn mowing in summer. All those who work in the public sector, whether they are officials or clerks or workers, are included in the civil roster. So, where were these people recruited from? How were they recruited? An assistant in the city's personnel department told me that all positions must be open and available to anyone in the community. Women, minorities, and people with disabilities are not only not to be discriminated against, but are to be treated more favorably than the general population. This is called affirmative action. Anyone willing to take on these public positions can apply. How does the city make the public aware of the need to recruit? The city has to use various means, such as notices in local newspapers, special job bulletins, advertisements, posting on bulletin boards in city offices, and using the city's cable television. I saw some of these notices on the doorstep of the city's personnel department called Memorandum from the City of Iowa City. There were notices for people to greet students as they crossed the street, for reserve staff to replace staff who might be sick, for program staff, for water, ski, science, and preschool art instructors, for library assistants, and for the police chief. Recruitment notices and advertisements are sent out depending on the level of the position. General positions are sent out within the city, more important ones to the states, and the most important ones, such as city managers and police chiefs, are sent out nationwide. The notice should state the nature of the job duties, job content, working hours, job requirements, job pay, start time, and application time for the official position you want to recruit someone to fill. Let's look at 2 specific announcements. County Development Fund Program Assistant. Assist in managing the Community Development Fund program by overcoming difficulties, preparing fund applications, writing reports, drafting documents, and being responsible for research and studies including program design, data collection, and analysis of results. Applicants are required to have received a master's degree in political science, community studies, urban studies, or something closely related to these fields, and to have worked for at least 3 years in program management and development or urban housing and community development departments. A master's degree in public administration may be substituted for 1 year of practical work experience. Excellent oral and written skills, administrative skills, the ability to communicate effectively with citizens, and a knowledge of federal, state, and local laws are required. Applicants are required to have an Iowa City driver's license. The police chief is responsible for a $3 million annual budget and manages 53 people. There are 50,000 people in Iowa City and other small towns. Candidates are required to have various competencies in policing, such as budgeting, developing plans, long-range planning, police leadership practices, respect for different views and opinions, know how to meet goals and anticipate problems, can be a leader and coordinate all members, can make recommendations to the city manager, city council, have the ability to deal with the public, can deal with a highly educated public, can work harmoniously with other governmental bodies. The city provides 100% health insurance, dental insurance, life insurance, 1 day of vacation per month, 1 day of sick leave per month, retirement pay of $200 per month after 5 years, salary between $39,936 and $57,429 with a car, possible selection process, application termination date, January 31st, 1989. The applicant will prepare other relevant documents, and the final candidate will be interviewed at the expense of the city to check the relevant documents. The interview will include an evaluation by a group of police experts and other interested parties, and will include an examination conducted by the University of Iowa. After the preliminary selection, the selection person will be interviewed again. After the wide announcement, candidates will send in their materials, and the HR department will gather all applications together. When the time is set, an examination is held. There are types of exams, such as interviews, written exams, and practical exams. The interview is mainly a group of people who evaluate the candidate, ask questions on the spot, and the interviewee answers the questions and then makes a selection. Written exams are more complex, with exam papers designed for each position. Such exams can turn out to be ineffective if they are generalized, so the exams are all designed for specialized positions. The exams include knowledge, ability, and response. Different positions also have special requirements, like that of police chief, which may require psychological and physical examinations to ensure that the mental condition is normal and the physical ability is adequate to perform the position. In the case of specific jobs, such as typists, computer operators, snowplow drivers, etc., the test takers are only required to operate the job on the spot for evaluation. The best candidate is selected through this process. I read an examination paper for the head of the fire department, and I remember the following questions. How do you understand policy development? What does policy development mean? Is it possible to make a long-term plan? What do you understand long-term planning to be? What would you do if there was a financial deficit in the department you lead? Can you train firefighters? How do you train them? What do you think is the most difficult issue? How will you deal with it? How do you see the role of women and minorities in your work? So on and so forth. There are about 30 questions. Each test taker has to take the test, of course, for those who have certain responsibilities. The results of these examinations are then evaluated and the candidates are selected on the basis of merit. In order to guard against fraud, all positions must be open and cannot be designated by any one person, and the mayor and city manager have no such right. The city has an agreement with the union that before open recruitment to the community, it must be open to those already employed, and then open to the community if no suitable candidate is available. But the process must also be public. No department head, including the city manager or mayor, has the authority to make direct appointments. If the many applicants feel that the final choice is unfair, they can take action in two ways: by going to court, which will hear such cases, or by filing a complaint against the Fair Chance Commission, a federal agency. Also, unions play a role. The fairness of the selection process is ensured through such a mechanism. Since the public sector depends on taxpayer money for its existence, they are subject to taxpayer scrutiny. The taxpayers should be on an equal footing to compete for public office. In the selection of candidates, it is stipulated that marital status, child status, religious affiliation, racial categorization, and personal history may not be examined. Only what is relevant to the position for which application is made may be examined. No person shall be excluded from competing for public office for any of the above reasons. Naturally, theoretically speaking, in the actual operation process, these are always unorthodox. There are many official practices. Any system or regulation will face these kind of challenges. Then this is especially true of the civil service. There is no need to analyze in detail here what percentage of this set of regulations is actually achieved. Theoretically, this system has its advantages. It ensures the relative stability of the administrative system. Civilian officials become skilled workers, unrelated to political party competition. Political party shifts do not affect them, and they can consistently manage all aspects of society. It ensures that political party competition can run smoothly. The functioning of the administrative system is the part of the iceberg that is underwater, and party competition is the only part of the iceberg that is exposed to the air. If party competition causes social disorder, it cannot be carried out effectively. The machinery of the administrative system is the civil service, which is the cornerstone of the American political system. It guarantees the technicalization of the social management process. The management of modern society requires increasingly refined and specialized technical personnel whose competence cannot be lower than that of engineers and technicians in factories. A large number of problems are engineering problems, and it is impossible to form a stable and effective technical cadre if all officials are involved in the political vortex. It ensures that the positions get the more capable people. It is not always the most capable people, and the most capable people are not always willing to hold public positions because the pay is lower than in private business. But because there is competition, testing, and selection, the people chosen can generally be competent. The success of a society's management or governance lies in how effectively that society can technicalize and professionalize a large percentage of its personnel so that they can study and develop the sectors they manage in a stable manner over time, at the same time opening up these positions for interested people from society to come and compete so that the best can be chosen over the worst. The greater the scope of openness, the greater the collection of surface. Like radar, a 360-degree scan will reveal more targets than a 180-degree scan. The key to achieving full openness about public positions is the degree of technicalization of these positions. The two are complementary and closely related, and the duality of American politics lies in the fact that on the one hand, it is a wide recruitment of talents into the civil service, and on the other hand, it places them under the rule of political forces, which effectively guarantees the rule of the ruling class. Section 8, Congressional Liaison Office. The American political pyramid from top to bottom is huge and complex. The pyramid, as we have seen, is not so compact in structure, but it runs smoothly, and there is no particular conflict between the levels, and the whole system is maintained. In fact, there are threads linking the various parts of this pyramid. We can look at how Congress is linked to the electorate. Members of Congress are elected by district, one from each. The current congressman for Iowa's 3rd Congressional District is named Nagel. The congressman's job is to reach out to his constituents, listen to them, and help them in various ways, including through legislation to solve the practical problems in his district. The primary responsibility of members of Congress does not lie in national affairs, of course. If Congress votes on such bills, they have to have an attitude. Their main focus is on their own constituency. Whether or not the voters of his district are satisfied with him is a prerequisite for his election or re-election. The function of the electoral system is the real deal in this respect. Although one can choose among a limited number of people, a majority of votes is necessary for whoever is to be admitted to the Capitol. This mechanism forces members of Congress to give more consideration to their own constituency. Congressmen have offices in Washington, D.C., and generally have an office staff of less than 10 people to help with various matters. Each staff member has a division of labor. Some are in charge of foreign affairs, national politics, some are in charge of various welfare matters, and some are in charge of economic matters, agriculture, industry, and so on. However, the Washington office is too far away from the constituency to contact the constituents of the constituency. Therefore, the congressmen have to set up liaison offices in this constituency. The number of liaison offices depends on the size of the district. Iowa's 3rd district has a large area, and Nagel has 4 liaison offices. The size of the liaison office depends on the size of the area it covers. Iowa City has 1 liaison office, which covers Johnson County. Because of the importance of the University of Iowa, Nagel has a liaison office in this county. What is a liaison office? I went to this liaison office in Iowa City. The office is located on the upper floor of a bank in the center of town. There were 2 or 3 offices, and the interior was spacious. There were 2 staff members in the office. All the liaison offices in the 3rd district have a total staff of about 10. With the Washington staff, a congressman has an average staff of about 20. The liaison offices operate in the name of the congressman, and most of the letters they send out are signed by the congressman's name, although they may make their own decisions. What is the main purpose of the liaison office? It's actually a facility to help voters solve their problems. Constituents can go to the liaison offices if they have any complaints, problems, or issues. Although the liaison offices are not executive agencies, they can coordinate with the executive agencies and influence the decisions of different agencies in the name of the congressman. The main activities of the liaison offices include Social Security matters, treatment of veterans, support of disabled children, immigration issues, agricultural development issues, etc. Their task is to help their constituents to solve their problems. On the one hand, it is a social work, and on the other hand, it is a way for Congresspeople to win the hearts and minds of the people. The staff member I interviewed told me how she works through various methods to get money from federal, state, and other funds to support the children, and how she helps foreigners who want to stay with their immigration problems, saying that she is dealing with the immigration of a Polish Solidarity Union member. The liaison office uses the prestige of the congressman to coordinate and lobby, often solving a number of problems. In terms of function, it is a bit like the Chinese petition office. The congressional liaison offices are paid by the Congress and have a budget in Congress, so they have some independence from the executive branch. It is the congressman who heads the liaison office. Congressmen travel between Washington and their districts each week, spending much of their time in their districts. If a congressman loses his election, his liaison office is abolished, and the staff in it has to find a new position. When a newly elected member of Congress establishes his or her liaison office, he or she naturally hires someone who has worked hard in the election. In political and social life, the liaison offices of congressmen are a very important network. They link all the constituents together, and the function of congressmen is not just to go to Washington once a year to discuss national events, but to deal with the smallest matters of each family every day. This is a mechanism that has some efficacy in terms of diffusing and easing social tensions. They are not the executive branch, and when people cannot deal with the executive branch, they can go also to the liaison office of the legislature, which is responsible for dealing with the executive branch. Naturally, the liaison offices also work within the law, and they cannot overstep it unless the congressmen make new laws through their own efforts. Even more noteworthy is the network of congressional liaison offices, which in effect constitute a complete information system. How does the legislature of a country legislate? This is a crucial issue in practical politics. Only when the legislature is well informed can it make laws that are more adaptable, and at the same time it can correctly judge the priorities of each matter and make laws. Without a complete information system, how can each congressman and Congress make accurate judgments? The congressman's liaison office system, together with modern means of communication and transportation, allows this information network to operate effectively. This is an important aspect of political and social organization. Congressmen rely on this system, but they are also subject to it, for this mechanism both serves and tests the activities of congressmen. Are congressmen competent? Are they doing their jobs? Have they accomplished something? This mechanism will tell the voters. There are many things that start out as things that people build for one goal and then often become tools to achieve another goal. Liaison offices both gather public opinion and are governed by it. End of chapter 7.